So my name's Jenita. I am a second year student nursing associate apprentice through the University of Plymouth, working under Cornwall Foundation, Cornwall Partnership NHS Foundation Trust. Bit of a mouthful there. So I'm actually about just over halfway through my second year. It's a 2-year-long apprenticeship that I'm undertaking. So on the final home stretch now, currently working in community hospitals in Cornwall, just on clinical placement, on rotations, whilst obviously learning at the same time. Really enjoying it. I have previous experience of higher education study. I actually studied a biomedical science degree at the University of Plymouth many moons ago. Took some time away from higher education and then decided to come back in the midst of COVID. Don't ask me why. So yeah, it's been quite a challenging, journey, as it were. But the support from the uni has been super helpful and has definitely helped nurture me in my journey so far. And so mine was, I literally just found the apprenticeship actually by chance through a simple Google search. It was in the first lockdown all those years ago, and I was twiddling my thumbs and I was looking for something new, and literally just searched, healthcare careers and links to education, and found the vacancy come up on Google. It then took me through to the Plymouth Uni apprenticeships page, and also the job listed on the NHS sort of vacancies website as well, where I read a little bit more about it there. I actually found the vacancy the day before the deadline, so whether it was fate, I don't know, but yeah, very quickly just put together an application, not sort of thinking much of it, because I wasn't sure that I had, going into healthcare, the sort of prior qualifications that were needed. Had my GCSEs and my A levels, and I thought that wouldn't be enough, but it was. And they said I met all the requirements, undertook an interview, and yeah, here I am. Definitely being able to put into practice what you learn at uni and the theory side of things, especially in clinical practice, with everything going on at the moment, is so important. And 100% time management is definitely a skill you will learn, because especially with nursing students, we can be pulling 12.5-hour shifts on wards, starting at the crack of dawn, finishing late at night, and the last thing you want to be doing is going home and thinking about an assignment. So yeah, it definitely teaches you skills and helps you develop and hone those skills. And again, like I mentioned before, the support from the uni and employers really does help with that. And yeah, definitely being able to apply what you learn in the classroom to practice, and vice versa. Actually, it works both ways. Is really important. So just for example, obviously we're in the midst of a global pandemic, and we learn about, for one of our modules at uni, we learn about public health and health promotion. So being able to provide that better care for our patients and advise them in hospital settings has proved absolutely vital and so instrumental in what we're going through at the moment. So yeah, definitely helped me do that through the apprenticeship route, rather than perhaps just doing it the traditional route, as some may say, where I'd learn the theory then put it into practice, where it might be a bit delayed and not as constructive perhaps. So as I previously mentioned, I actually went to Plymouth Uni before and did a degree there for 3 years, and I was living in Plymouth at the time. I now live in Cornwall, so I found that a bit of a culture shock, but a positive one. And I was worried initially that I might not have access to the same sort of resources and facilities that you can access on the Plymouth Uni campus, such as the study spaces and things like that. But actually, there are equally as amazing resources and facilities down here. So we've got a local library at the Knowledge Spa in Truro.
I thought it'd be the Knowledge Spa you'd be based in.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Again, similar thing. We have study spaces. You can book up to 2 hours at a time. Loads of resources. And if you can't make it to Truro, there are other local study spaces at your local community hospitals that you can book in as well. And uni and the placement coordinators are really thoughtful in that They try and put you on clinical placements as close to where you live as possible, because obviously Cornwall is quite vast. So I am actually on placement only 5 minutes down the road from where I live. So I don't waste as much time traveling to and from placements, and I can make the most of my free time to perhaps spend on, assignments or further reading and things like that. For the most part of our first year, we were on Zoom, so that was a bit rubbish. But yeah, now getting back into the clinical practice and meeting fellow students is really, really fun, and definitely enhances the whole experience, I think. I certainly do. We have a thing that's called CLIP, so it's collaborative learning in practice. It's a whole notion in sort of student nursing, and we're encouraged to work with fellow students on wards and placements to provide care for patients, and we're sort of left to it. Obviously we're supervised if we need to be, but we're left to sort of run the show, as it were, and learning from other students is hugely important. I've relied a lot on sort of second and third year students when I was a first year, learning from them, learning skills to put into practice, and even just not in clip sessions, just being able to liaise with other students, talk about what they've been learning, what other modules they're doing, how their other placement experiences have been. That is super duper helpful, having that sort of experience. Yeah. It can be tricky at times, I'll be honest, because especially in nursing, sometimes as an apprentice, you feel that perhaps there's more sort of time given to the degree students and the full-time students, because obviously we're part of the workforce, we're part of the team, we're part of the numbers. So perhaps sometimes we're considered and seen as a member of the team, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It means we're sort of part of the furniture and we've embedded ourselves well within our teams. But it's just taking leadership and ownership of your own learning and exploring those opportunities, making the most of what you can. Again, using those students and their experience as well to further your skills. But more often than not, it's a really good experience, and I really enjoy working with the full-time students. Well, for me, just working in healthcare, COVID has been a huge one. I'm sure that goes for many other settings as well, but obviously I started my apprenticeship in September 2020, which feels like a lifetime ago, but that was obviously just sort of 6 months into the pandemic, so right into it, chucked in at the deep end. I'd never worked in healthcare before either, so I was pretty much going in blind, just doing whatever was expected of me and what I was told to do, and that was really daunting because, as I'm sure others would agree, it sort of hindered some experiences in some aspects because of limited opportunities and perhaps seeing patients that we might not generally see, but because of staffing pressures and time constraints, we just had to do what we had to do at the time and the place. Obviously all still really good learning opportunities and experiences, but I feel like I might have had a slightly different experience perhaps if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah, definitely. I mean, so obviously an extra pair of hands in any healthcare setting is amazing, notably in a pandemic. But also, so through my apprenticeship, I'm part of what will be called something called the Aging Well program. So that's something that's specific to our trust down here in Cornwall through CFT, and we're basically being very luckily being granted a job, guaranteed a job at the end of our program. So not only does the employer, they get an extra pair of hands, they get a new team member in us, but we obviously get a guaranteed salary job at the end of it, ideally and hopefully within a placement that we've already experienced. So we already know the team, the way they work, the clinical setting. So that would be amazing, and obviously it offers progression routes as well, to further our careers and things like that. And I think even just now as students, they've definitely benefited from having an extra team member, and I think us students showing willingness to learn and enthusiasm creates a really great work environment for our employers as well. It boosts morale for them and their team members, and it just creates a really great working and learning environment for everyone, which is really nice. I'd say just go for it. Absolutely just go for it. I think when I was a bit younger, I didn't really know much about apprenticeships or degree apprenticeships, and I thought they were sort of more practical things, and I associated it with jobs such as carpentry or engineering or things like that. And I never thought I'd have an entry route into healthcare through an apprenticeship. And obviously, so they've come a long way since I was younger, and they're such a great route into higher education. You get to earn whilst you learn. Like, what other way? There's no other way to do it, really. And it's such a great experience. You get to meet new people, you work with new colleagues, and as I mentioned before, amazing routes for progression in your future careers. So I can't recommend them enough.